Big night for offense. 23 offensive players selected in the first round. That is a record. 6 quarterbacks ties a record. 7 wide receivers, a tight end, 9 offensive linemen, 14 straight picks. The first 14 were all on offense. You probably saw on the broadcast. That was the most consecutive picks of offensive players in draft history or modern draft history. Pretty incredible stuff. Adam, Dave, and Jamie here on Thursday night, now Friday morning, 12:03 a.m. Got some Twitter polls for you. Got our winners and losers. We'll be talking about the NFL veterans who are winners and losers as well. And, I mean, I loved it. I loved it, guys. I thought it was a terrific night for fantasy football, Dave Richard. I'm all about it.
It was awesome. And it's, you know, as fantasy football has been trending in the direction of deprioritizing running backs, so too has the NFL for the last 5 years. I think the first round in this draft is clear evidence of that, with all the quarterbacks that were taken, all the wide receivers that were taken, all the offensive linemen that were taken to protect the quarterbacks so that they could throw to wide receivers and a tight end.
Yeah, and some surprises in there. Ricky Pearsall to the 49ers.
Oh, everybody saw that coming, Adam, please.
I do wonder. You got to wonder, are we going to get an Ayuk or Debo trade tomorrow? Could be. We'll see.
It's just, we were just talking about this. It's a little surprising that it didn't happen early in the first round, that they can get another first-round pick for this year for a team that clearly has the ability to win a Super Bowl or compete for one. But, like Dave pointed out, and it's clearly not out of the realm of possibility that they're just planning for the future if they don't think that Ayuk is going to be there, whether they're getting draft picks in return for him now for the future, or they're just looking ahead to maybe him leaving the team. But, this draft showed you, you have the ability to load up on offense. I mean, the Falcons are playing in a 2 QB league, so they got, 2 guys to start for them. I don't understand. You said it was a fun night for fantasy. Yes, there are just a few things that happened that just absolutely bonkers. That being the biggest one, the Falcons taking Michael Penix at 8, and some of the disappointing things, one in particular being the Chargers not drafting a wide receiver when they had the ability to take Nabers or Dunze, or at least trade down and maybe get something. And they could have still gotten an offensive lineman, even maybe Joe Alt, if they traded down to the right spot. But yeah, it was interesting. It was definitely an interesting first round.
Yeah, Bo Nix going 12th was pretty interesting as well. Going to the Broncos, he was a very short area passer last year, completed over 70% of his passes. He said he's run a lot of, Bo Nix has run a lot of the same concepts that you see in Sean Payton's offense. You're going to get the Drew Brees comparisons because it's, get the ball out quickly, let guys do things after the catch. So here, let's check in on the Twitter poll that I think I'm really interested to see what people say, and I guess it's a little bit close. Marvin Harrison Jr. will be number 1. This is what I wrote in the Twitter poll. I'm going to remove Rome Odunze and Ricky Pearsall since they currently look like the number 3 wide receivers on their own team. Who is your number 2 rookie wide receiver for 2024? I wrote 2023. Whoops. 2024. People still got it. They still knew what I was talking about. Malik Nabers on the Giants, Xavier Worthy on the Chiefs, Brian Thomas with the Jaguars, Xavier Legette with the Panthers. He's getting just 4% of the vote. And Nabers at 49% is the leader, with Xavier Worthy 35%, and then way behind Brian Thomas 12.3%, Xavier Legette 3.8%. You agree with that? Should Nabers be the second best of the 7 who were drafted tonight, the second best rookie wide receiver this year behind Harrison, Dave?
Absolutely, but I don't think he should be taken anywhere near where we're going to take Harrison in drafts. In fact, I don't think Nabers should even sniff the first 5 rounds of a redraft. Yeah, I don't see it. I know that there's all kinds of upside for him. He's a great talent, but this offense in New York is crummy. We don't know how healthy Daniel Jones is going to be. If he's not there, it's Drew Lock. Man, it just I get the willies thinking about it. And then on top of it all, are we really going to see this Giants offense force feed targets to Nabers to even the extent that it's 8 targets a game? I mean, I'm thinking Marvin Harrison could get 9 or 10 targets per game. I'm wondering if Malik Nabers will get close to 8 per game, but not get over the top. I'm going to let Adam Azer go ahead and take Malik Nabers before I even think about doing it. And I'll be able to get some receivers who fall. There's going to be a lot of veteran receivers. Jamie talked about one of them on the shorter videos we did. Christian Kirk's value might drop because Jacksonville drafted a wide receiver with deep speed. And if that's the case, I think Kirk absolutely is the safer pick between him and Nabers. It sounds a little silly, and there's no doubt that Nabers is the better talent. I just don't like his situation for this year.
Jamie, what do you think? Would you take Malik Nabers in the first 5 rounds?
No. Again, you have an unhealthy Daniel Jones. We don't know when he'll be 100%. You have still a lot of questions on this offense, but he's not far from that, though. I mean, probably around 6, especially when we're talking 3 receiver leagues or 2 receiver leagues in a flex where it's PPR. So he's not going to be that far off of it. I mean, he'll be in the top 36 receivers. He just won't be in the top 30.
Yeah, we let me see. I'll give you some good stats about rookie wide receivers. I was trying to find, have there been any rookie wide receivers who have had great fantasy seasons with what we perceive to be bad quarterbacks? And you could look at Odell Beckham 10 years ago, and whether or not you consider Manning bad at that point, I don't think he was, but he was coming off a bad season, and then he had a great season. Mike Evans was a top 13 overall receiver. He was 11th in non-PPR, 13th PPR. That was with Mike Glennon and Josh McCown. Kelvin Benjamin that year, Cam Newton and Derek Anderson, they weren't exactly lighting it up as passers. He was a top 16 wide receiver. Some sites have him as a tight end. A.J. Brown is a good example. I mean, you look at the year Ryan Tannehill had that year, and he only played he and Mariota were splitting
half the season.
A.J. Brown is an example there. And Jalen Waddle to a degree. Miami threw for 3,900 yards, 21 touchdowns. That was Tua and Jacoby Brissett. And Jalen Waddle had 104 catches, 1,015 yards, and 6 touchdowns in 16 games. So it does happen. These guys, sometimes they elevate the play of the quarterbacks and make these quarterbacks better than we think. Daniel Jones might.
I mean,
can you put Puka in that category because Stafford coming off a back injury?
Puka is sort of like Beckham and Eli. Where you don't really know how good Stafford is at this point and what Puka did for him. But yeah, I mean, you could say that he's
I guess not fair because the draft capital is so different.
Yeah, Puka's out.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so, what about Tank Dell and Jayden Reed last year? We just didn't know what we would get. I don't think that we looked at CJ Stroud and Jordan Love and think, oh, they're not good. They fumble a lot. They struggle with pass rush pressure. We didn't know what they were. They were mysteries, but they turned out to be outstanding quarterbacks, and they were helped along by Tank Dell and Jayden Reed for a portion of the season. Dell finished top 20 in PPR points per game for the games that he played.
And would you take Malik Nabers or Keenan Allen as the Bears draft Rome Odunze 9th overall?
I'd probably take the upside of Nabers.
Yeah. This is another situation where Odunze's a rival. It's going to hurt DJ Moore. It's going to hurt Keenan Allen. Allen was getting, what was the number? 11 targets per game last year when he was going berserk. I can look it up. It'll take me a second, but he might get half that now. Still a reliable receiver for the Bears. And he'll have some games where, he'll catch 7 passes for 65 yards and a touchdown, and that'll be a good game for Keenan Allen. But I think Nabers will get more targets than Keenan Allen at this point.
Yeah, he was on pace for 196 targets.
Dude, 13 targets per game in weeks 1 through 3, and then 11.1 targets per game in his last 10 after the Mike Williams injury.
God, why didn't they give Justin Herbert a receiver?
Jim Harbaugh addressed that, Jamie. He said, I know you're going to ask me about adding offensive weapons. Offensive linemen are offensive weapons. I'm paraphrasing, but he said something like that.
I mean, it looks a great pick. It just sucks for us.
Yeah, they have a chance to get that in the next round. But let's talk about Marvin Harrison.
They're the team giving up a first for Brandon Ayuk.
They have the 5th pick of round 2, the 5th pick of round 3, the fifth pick of round 4. So this is a Charger we're talking about. Let's talk about Marvin Harrison real quick here. When do you think you'll take Marvin Harrison Jr. going to the Cardinals 4th overall? Jamie, is he a top 24 guy now?
No, but he's, right around between 30 and 36, round 3 pick. So, again, you have huge opportunity. with what this receiving core looks like. It's Michael Wilson and Greg Dortch right now as the top two guys. Clearly, that's not the case anymore. This is going to be a potential superstar, hopefully right away. Dave talked about the ability to get 10 targets a game. We'll see if that's the case in this offense, but there's just so much to love about the scenario here because Kyler has supported a number one receiver. We've seen that with DeAndre Hopkins, and we saw it with Marquise Brown when Hopkins was suspended 2 years ago. So there's huge upside here for an immensely talented player to step in right away and be a superstar. So if you are that over the moon over him, and we've talked about what the receivers in the round 2 range look like, so once you get past really that, you want to say second tier group, but just really the top 8 or 9 guys, he's in that next grouping of receivers, with the 49ers guys, Nico Collins, Chris Olave at the top of that group, I think is kind of where he's the next guy up. But Michael Pittman, Drake London, if you want to put him there. I like London a little bit better, but there's just so many jumbled scenarios that, if he wasn't a rookie, he would easily be there if he plays to the capability of what he's expected to do. So if you want to make sure you get him, then go get him. So late round 2, early round 3, I wouldn't fight it. But for me, he's more middle to the end of round 3.
So I almost feel like if you're taking him in late round 2, you're drafting him toward the top of his ceiling. We've talked about that already this offseason about other players that you just don't want to do that with. But I'm kind of feeling the gravitational pull. Jamie just said something. If he weren't a rookie wide receiver, where would you take him? He'd be a second round pick. Dude, he might be a top 5 pick because he is that good. He is that talented. The last time I felt this strongly about a rookie wide receiver, hold the Jalen Reagor jokes. It's not him. It's Jamar Chase. And
Right.
I can't help but think that Marvin Harrison can do for the Cardinals what Jamar Chase did for the Bengals, although I don't think Harrison's going to have a bout of the dropsies during the preseason that's going to push his draft value into round 7. I'm going to look for him in the early part of round 3, but I can't promise that I won't take him with a late second round pick at some point because I think he is that good. And I think Kyler Murray is good. And I think this offense in Arizona is good. Look at what this offense was doing with Josh Dobbs last year. Don't look at it with Clayton Tune, though. Ignore that part. But even Dobbs was getting some numbers last year, and some of it was running. But Kyler Murray should be in prime position to force feed targets to Marvin Harrison. And it wouldn't surprise me in the least if he ended up having a monster year.
If you go back to Adam, you may have this in front of you because I know you're usually good at this stuff. The 2014 receiver class is one that we always point to.
Yep.
Sammy Watkins was the first receiver drafted that year and struggled, right?
I mean, he had an okay year. It was like a top 30. He was the number 26 wide receiver in PPR. He had 982 yards and 6 touchdowns. Actually pretty good, yet he was the 5th best in that class. If you can name the 4 who were better than him in terms of fantasy points, you win a prize. Beckham, yep.
Beckham and Evans.
Brandon Cooks?
No.
Oh, Jarvis Landry?
No.
No. Huh?
Devontae Adams? No.
I already said one. I said some sites have him as a tight end.
Oh, Kelvin Benjamin.
Kelvin
I don't think
Benjamin.
you'll ever get the other one. It was Jordan Matthews, who's
Jordan
just
Matthews.
ahead of Sammy Watkins.
I mean, that class was just so insane. But so you had Watkins was the first receiver drafted, wasn't the best. I'm just trying to think of
Harrison's better than all those guys were as prospects.
But
my opinion.
But again, still highly touted players going into the draft, which is why they were drafted as high as they were. Like Jamar Chase lived up to it, I think, as a rookie, clearly.
Okay, I think what you're trying to find are the last time that the first wide receiver drafted in the NFL draft was the best fantasy rookie, right? And I can tell you that. It was Jamar Chase in 2021. Before that, you had to go back to 2015, Amari Cooper. Yeah, so it's not always. It often isn't the number 1 wide receiver drafted.
Right, Henry Ruggs was not.
Yeah, I mean, Garrett Wilson
was not.
Right, Garrett Wilson was better than him. Puka Nacua, obviously, last year. Justin Jefferson was the 5th wide receiver drafted. A.J. Brown was the 4th wide receiver drafted. These guys were the best in their class.
Right, so we get in this scenario a lot, and it doesn't always pan out. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't get excited about him because, again, prospect, fit, quarterback, system, like it's all there.
It's all there. I love
it.
I got to take a break.
Was Sammy Watkins' dad a Hall of Famer?
Just think about this. We've been talking a lot about, hey, after A.J. Brown and Garrett Wilson are off the board, you're early in the second round of your fantasy draft. Who should be that next wide receiver? You know, Chris Olave I took, and I was like, he seems too early for him. Then it was, how about Nico Collins? He could go there. Then they traded for Stephon Diggs. So why not Marvin Harrison? That's a topic for a different day. Because I have to get to some more players. Tomorrow night, after rounds 2 and 3, Friday night, into Saturday morning, another live show at about midnight. Stay tuned for that. We'll be right back after this break on Fantasy Football Today.
We need your sports news anywhere.
We've got breaking news to bring you.
Then get your sports anytime you want them. Big trade news overnight to discuss.
Because we know you need sports all the time.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
A legend adds to their legacy.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, anywhere, anytime, all the time.
I want to get to some veteran winners and losers, but I got just a couple, maybe I think 2. We'll see how it goes. Quarterback questions for you after Thursday night. Caleb Williams, number 1 overall to the Bears, who then take Rome Odunze 9th overall. And Jayden Daniels goes 2nd overall. Drake Maye, I know he's not going to be part of this discussion for 2023 or 4 rather. What year is this? 2024. Would you rather have Caleb Williams?
You take one show off and you lost a year.
Caleb Williams or Jayden Daniels this year? Or for both? How about both? Redraft and Dynasty, Caleb or Jayden Daniels?
So Dave and I we did a lot of, not a lot. We did several videos after a few groupings of picks. And so I know we both were Jayden Daniels over Caleb Williams after the first 3 picks. And then they took Rome Odunze, and it was like, it's hard for me not to take Caleb Williams ahead of Daniels because I think there's a little bit of a higher ceiling as a passer. Daniels should be the better rusher. They're going to be back-to-back. I'll probably flip-flop them 100 times between now and August, but they'll both be, as of now, in my top 13, if not top 12. So I would take both over Justin Herbert, over Tua, over Cousins, over Purdy, which puts them in the top 12 for me. So one will be 11, one will be 12.
Okay.
Williams higher.
There's never been, I don't know that there's ever been a situation like this for a number 1 overall pick or a rookie quarterback in general. It's amazing.
He's got studs everywhere.
Yeah, what he's walking into.
It's like a Madden team. And it's a better offense than what Chicago's had over the past couple of years. Sorry, Las Vegas, that's your new offense now. But these are 3 crafty route runners that Chicago has. Someone's going to get open on every play. And so Caleb Williams, as long as he's got protection, he could end up being quite good. The thing that he doesn't have that Jayden Daniels has, though, is rushing ability. And that kind of is
he does have it.
Daniels.
That's
not like Daniels, though.
Oh, not like Daniels, but he does have rushing ability.
Sure, but he's got rushing ability where he might finish the year with 400 yards rushing. I don't know how much scrambling he's going to need to do with these wide receivers that he has. I think it could potentially be not a total 180 from what he was doing at USC, but you know what I'm saying. A lot more staying in structure, scanning the field, seeing an open guy, throwing the football. Pretty simple stuff. He doesn't have to jump all over the place and avoid defensive pass rush and all that crap. Daniels is going to run. He could end up having 1,000 yards on the ground over 17 games. I don't think that's crazy.
Okay, so
it feels like this is this year's version of Richardson and Stroud.
Who do you like better in Dynasty, real quick? Those 2.
Caleb
Williams.
Okay. Who's your number 3 quarterback in redraft? Who's your number 3 quarterback in Dynasty?
McCarthy for both.
Yes.
Who's number 4?
Number 4 is
it's gonna be Maye.
Okay. But yeah, gotta check out Heath's. That was great. Gotta check out Heath's Dynasty show. Also, I sent Dave what I thought was a very clever fantasy football team name. He just didn't like it, didn't get it, didn't like it at all. I'll save it for another day. Who are some winners and losers?
I got a new nickname for the Giants wide receiver.
Oh, what's that?
Mr. Rogers.
Why? Because he's in the neighborhood?
Should be my neighbor.
Yep. Yeah, it wouldn't have been better if he went to the Jets. But anywho, speaking of the Jets, I was, I guess, happy for Garrett Wilson that he doesn't have to share more targets as they took a left tackle of the future.
Mhm.
Weird pick for the Jets. But who are some, Dave, who are some NFL veteran winners?
Well, I think you just named one with Garrett Wilson. Rodgers, by the same definition, I think is a winner because his protection just got a lot better. Whoever ends up being the lead running back for the Chargers, man, that's going to be a pretty substantial offensive line for a long time. So that dude's got a big question mark for a face, but probably by the end of tomorrow, we'll know who that is. Kyler, we talked about Kyler. Whoever the next Giants quarterback is going to be, that guy's going to be a winner.
Daniel Jones is a winner. I laid this out
Okay.
on
All
the show
right. Oh, sure.
earlier. They've never had a yak guy. They actually have some decent pieces on that team if he could just be okay. I mean, I think he stinks. But if he runs for 500 yards, there's an avenue there for Daniel Jones to be
You
low.
think coming off an ACL tear, he's running for 500 yards?
For 700 before the ACL tear. So I knocked him down 200 yards. So look, Kyler was, running a decent amount last year. There's not a lot of mobile quarterbacks who've had ACL injuries. RG3 you could look at. I don't think he was ever the same. But anyway, if he can get 500 rushing yards, I think he could be a top 15 quarterback. Not in a fun, exciting way, but in a 2 QB league.
Well, I mean, look, he's a significant winner because A, he didn't get replaced, and B, he got a weapon.
Yeah. I don't want to talk too much about him. Kyler's definitely a big winner. Anyone else jump out here as a big winner?
Patrick Mahomes, we talked about this. He may be my QB1 now, just with Josh Allen not getting someone, and Jalen Hurts, he clearly is fine. But, I mean, Mahomes now has, assuming the Rice suspension, if it does happen, is not significant. I mean, think about the 4 pass catchers that he has now. It's easily his best since Tyreek Hill left, and maybe his best group overall, with what these guys have the potential to do. If Marquise Brown is anything close to where he was at his peak last year in Baltimore, beginning part of his Arizona tenure, Rice was certainly a big-time playmaker for them in the second half of the season in the playoffs. And now you add Xavier Worthy, who's, a video game that is going to, hopefully do some of the things Tyreek Hill did in this offense. And so there's just a lot to like about Mahomes. Plus, you can debate how much does the defense impact the offense. Their defense definitely got a little worse without Legette Sneed there. So, do they have to put up more points to compensate for maybe what they were able to get away with last year? And we know they're capable of that. So, I mean, Mahomes feels like a big winner also.
I don't know if there was a better fit. I mean, this is just my opinion. When I watched Xavier Worthy, the first thing I thought of was Tyreek Hill. I didn't really want Xavier Worthy to go to the Bills. Right. I didn't really want him to go to the Bills. I didn't know if he fit for the Bills, but I thought it was so perfect for him to go to the Chiefs. And the fact that they traded with the Bills to move up to get him, that's wild stuff, man. And the Bills will have the first pick tomorrow or Friday.
Yeah.
The 3rd overall pick. So.
And they get Mitchell.
Two trade downs.
And I don't know if officially, I think they moved up about 40 picks later in the draft to move down one spot. Something like 200th to 161st.
Whoop-de-doo. They went from round 6 to round 5, and they lost out on another potential receiver. Both times they traded down. Both times a receiver was taken. I hope they didn't want Worthy or Legette.
Look, if they come away with Adonai Mitchell and they move up 40 picks, and that's the guy they wanted, it could end up being very good.
They could be just acquiring ammunition to get Brandon Ayuk.
Could be. Absolutely. All right. How about any losers? Any losers, guys?
Justin Herbert. Michael Penix.
I'm assuming, you already said you're drafting Caleb
I think Drake May's a loser. The prospect of him going to Minnesota, now all that excitement of throwing to those receivers is gone. That went to McCarthy. Now he's in New England. Alex Van Pelt is his play caller. His best receiver is Kendrick Bourne. Man, I do not feel – I don't even know if he's going to start right away. I bet the Patriots take it really slow with Drake May.
Oh, John Mayo said that. Yeah.
Fixes everything with his footwork and his ability to read on the fly, and they surround him with some really good talent because this team is a long way away, and I don't know if May will ever reach his ceiling there.
Some slight players that lost value. Dave mentioned one, Christian Kirk, just with the addition of Thomas. I don't think that's a bad thing for what his production will be, but he loses a little bit of value. Rice and Brown with the addition of Worthy.
How about the
guy-
Bears receivers?
For
Yeah.
sure.
Moore and Keenan Allen.
DJ Moore, we talked about this, felt like a round 2 pick before the addition of Odunze, and now for me it's probably round 4. Keenan Allen is, was a guy Dave mentioned round 5. I agree with that. I think it's, maybe even round 6 or 7
later.
At this point.
Wait, Keenan Allen round 6 or 7, you said?
Yeah. It's just hard to trust.
That might be too soon. I'm really going to be out on Keenan Allen.
This is one where I don't know. There's no precedent. There's nothing I can really go to. I have no idea how this is going to play out. The only thing I know is that I love it for Caleb Williams.
Oh, of course. Yeah. But you're talking about a 32-year-old receiver switching teams, and now with the most talented receiving core around him.
Yeah.
So he's a guy, Dave gave you the target share, 11 to 13 per game last year, depending on, what stretch of games you were looking at. But he's always been a target hog, 150 plus targets for 4 straight years. So it's hard to, expect that to continue. Some other guys that lost, the guys in Las Vegas with the addition of Bowers, so Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, those guys lose.
Oh, Michael Mayer, does he have any dynasty value?
No,
it went down the toilet. I feel like Bowers is kind of a loser. It might be a short-term thing, but I feel like he's a little loser.
Yes, this wasn't the best spot for him, but I'm going to bank on talent winning out here, and it's not like we haven't seen for stretches, assuming it is Gardner Minshew, support multiple targets. He hasn't done it consistently, but he's done it. And so with Adams being the 1, you got to just hope that Bowers is the 2 in terms of targets, because it still could be Jacoby Myers, but it's going to be a run first team. So this wasn't the most ideal landing spot.
Of course, he could be one of the guys that runs it for them.
Right. Going back to winners, I don't know, you want to jump around, but Trevor Lawrence obviously getting a weapon. That was nice.
Yeah,
nice. I think we should spend a little bit more time on this one, right? So look, sometimes it's harder from a dynasty standpoint to talk about a guy like Ricky Pearsall and Rome Odunze right now. But I think from a 2024 perspective, people probably, let's see what the Niners do, obviously. But they're not going to be drafting Pearsall too early. Odunze will be, I don't know what, 8th, 9th round pick, just off the top of my head. Nabers people will be excited about him to different degrees, maybe 5th, 6th round pick. I think he might move up. I mean, there's going to be a lot of buzz on him, but we'll see. But I just happen to I'm partial to him. I just really love Malik Nabers. Brian Thomas is interesting. He's had one good year. He's young. He's described as raw. He ended up being on so many different people's lists, the number 4 wide receiver. And he ended up getting drafted as the number 4 wide receiver. So that really does mean something to me. I wasn't a huge fan, but I'm going to put that aside and say what all the other people who are doing the evaluations had him 4. The NFL, they drafted him 4, right? The Jaguars took him. They didn't have to trade up to get him. But
they traded down to get him.
Right. He's kind of a deep ball guy. I don't know how much he affects Christian Kirk.
He's not strictly a deep ball guy.
This is the hardest one for me.
This is a great fit for the team because they needed speed. They needed somebody that can make plays down the field. It's certainly going to help Trevor Lawrence. Whether that changes Trevor Lawrence's fantasy value remains to be seen. But they added 2 guys that are, when right, and I'm, saying that about Gabe Davis because it's not always consistent, but guys that can make plays down the field. And so that's huge for this. And when I say that Christian Kirk loses value, I mean it from an ADP standpoint, and I think a perception standpoint. I love Christian Kirk. This doesn't necessarily change my overall perception of what he's going to do, because we saw this 2 years ago when he was with Zay Jones as the second guy, essentially from what his role was. Jones was the big play threat on the outside. Kirk was still the guy that led the team in targets. He's still going to lead the team in targets. He's still going to have an opportunity to play at a very high level. And so Thomas will have some moments. It'll probably be more so in the second half of the season because, like you said, he's a raw prospect and it's going to probably take him some time to adjust. But I think Kirk drops half a round to a round now, and that makes him one of the best value picks I think you'll find.
It's kind of hard to find examples of a stud wide receiver going to a stud quarterback and being the number one guy. I thought maybe that could be the case with Christian Watson, but remember how that season played out for him with Aaron Rodgers. He was pretty much hurt for the first half of the year. Then he sort of took over late. Jamar Chase, like, I don't think we could call Joe Burrow a stud quarterback at that point. Where am I going with this? I mean, do we have that in this draft? Is that
Harrison.
Marvin Harrison going to a
That's
stud?
the closest thing you've got to it.
What about Worthy? I mean, I know that might sound like a stretch, but Kelsey's kind of on his last legs. Rashee Rice, I didn't mention this. They're expecting a suspension for Rashee Rice.
But how many games, though? That's the key.
Yeah.
Even if it's 4, it's not enough to completely. I don't think they acquired Worthy because they're scared of losing Rice or that they've soured on Rice. I think they want to add that element of deep speed to their offense, and they see elements of Tyreek Hill. He's 20 pounds lighter than Tyreek Hill, but he might be a little more nuanced as far as running routes than Tyreek Hill was when Tyreek came out. But just imagine this offense now. Worthy and Hollywood can take the top off of defenses, and they've got Rice and Kelsey underneath. I mean, there is a very strong case being built for Patrick Mahomes to be the top quarterback. And Worthy is going to be one of our favorite picks in redraft. Maybe Dynasty too. I've got him. What do I have him? 4th now amongst these wide receivers that were taken?
That's what you said. Yeah, we both agree on it.
Well, Marquise Brown definitely needs to be mentioned, right? He's a part of this too. He's a factor. No one's going to be excited to draft him, but he's going to factor in. But what about Rice? And we talked about the biggest losers and didn't mention Rashee Rice.
Oh, he's definitely, when you factor in potential suspension plus the addition of 2 wide receivers to this offense this offseason, so he was a guy that, if you recall, we did our top 12 wide receivers right at the end of the regular season, right before the NFL playoffs started. And for, I think, of the 7 people who did it, I think at least 3 had him as a top 12 wide receiver, myself included. So, he was a guy that I was looking at toward the end of round 2. Then as the, offseason unfolded and, the addition of Brown and then the suspension, he was falling in the mocks that we did, into round 3, back end of round 3. Now I think round 4 is probably the earliest you'll consider taking him. He still should be the best, assuming the suspension is not more than 4 games. He still should be the best Chiefs wide receiver going into the year. But, last year he did this with Sky Moore struggling, with Kadarius Toney not being a huge factor. There was just nobody there to take away opportunities from him. Now there's 2 significant playmakers, a veteran guy who's done it before and a guy that has the ability to be a difference maker. These guys don't typically pan out, these speed guys that run this to this level at the combine. Everybody's going to remember John Ross, but it's not the first time it's happened. I'm forgetting the guy for the Raiders who did it once upon a time, Jacoby Ford, I think. Yeah. They just don't typically pan out. But as you guys have alluded to, and I agree, he's not the same type of guy. He can actually play. He's not just a guy that runs down the field. So you get. I was having this conversation with somebody today. I mean, we could go 1,000 directions with it. If the Bears had drafted Patrick Mahomes instead of Mitch Trubisky, would Mahomes be Mahomes? And I think we'd always say no. He ended up with one of the best head coaches and play callers and offensive minds in the history of the game. And that's what Reed is now going to do. He gets to mold Xavier Worthy. And, your poll was who's the second best wide receiver, right?
If second best rookie wide receiver behind Harrison.
Right.
Neighbors.
Odunze wasn't an option, and it was in 2023.
Yeah, but
yeah.
Even if Odunze is an option, I would take a chance on Worthy.
Yeah. Another thing, just a couple things about Worthy. He's stick thin, so that could be a concern. And then again, Devontae Smith's fine, but he and Xavier Legette, who went 32nd overall, I do wonder if they got pushed up a little bit because they can play on special teams, which is a huge deal now potentially with the new kickoff rules. And if I was just curious if teams were going to take these guys be kick returners a little bit earlier and kind of fool us a little bit into thinking, oh, these are, top 32 players.
Yeah. In round 1 though, maybe I don't know if I'm ready to say that Ricky Pearsall is going to be the kick returner for the 49ers this year, but that's a role he could have. Shifty, able to make a cut and go. I mean, we're thinking that it's going to be more of running backs and wide receivers that are going to be returning kicks. It's not going to be early round guys that are going to do that. But if it's part of something that they can do on top of another role for their offense, then sure, why not? It's football.
Do me a favor, Adam. Put up the comment from Rhonda, because I was just about to bring this up. That I can't sit here and say that Andy Reid has a chance to do great things with Worthy when he's had his hands on Miko. I wasn't even thinking Miko Hardman, but I was thinking Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore. Other players that have had the ability to be sort of game changers. I mean, they traded for Toney, who was a first-round talent out of Florida. Hardman was a second-round pick that everybody thought was going to be the next Tyreek Hill, especially when Hill was supposed to be suspended. And Sky Moore was supposed to be this guy that stepped into his opportunity. So he's had wide receivers before that have had talent. To whatever degree you're going to rank those players in terms of talent. So he has failed in that regard several times, but you just got to take chances sometimes with opportunities and players and situations. And so that's why I'm going to be excited about Xavier Worthy, for better or worse.
All right, we're going to do some rankings, get into it a little bit more after this break on Fantasy Football Today.
The best couch potatoes come from Pluto TV country.
And these taters, they like all sorts of different things.
Survivor Channel, Ink Master Channel.
If it's got a spaceship in it, I'm probably watching it.
3 channels dedicated to CSI.
Whatever mood you're in, it's going to be easy watching.
Let's go through some of the trades. The Vikings acquired the 10th pick and a 6th-round pick from the Jets. The Jets moved down 1 spot. So the Vikings moved up from 11 to 10. They gave up a 4th and a 5th and got back a 6th-round pick. And they took J.J. McCarthy. So with that, what do we think about Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison this year, Dave Richard?
I'm probably going to hold them right where they are in my rankings. And Jefferson is 5th for me. Wouldn't be surprised at all to see him go higher in everybody's drafts. Addison, not quite a top 30 wide receiver, potentially outside of the top 36. McCarthy has his flaws, but he's coming from a pro-ready offense, pro-style system. He's good enough to start now, I think, in this league. And that's good for Minnesota because they really don't have anybody else. They can put Sam Darnold out there. I'd rather have McCarthy playing, obviously, and throwing to those pass catchers to start the year. So I'm not scared off by McCarthy being the quarterback in Minnesota.
We've talked a lot about what Jefferson did with Nick Mullins, and it was fantastic. So the system is amazing. He's an amazing talent, as we know. He's watching some pretty big contracts get handed out to wide receivers in Amon-Ra St. Brown and A.J. Brown in the last couple of days, and he's waiting for his bag to come. I'm sure it will happen before the season starts. We might be talking about a holdout here, which would be unfortunate. But in any event, I think you look at the situation. McCarthy keeps Jefferson at 3 for me, behind Lamb and Tyreek Hill. Would not be opposed to him being the first receiver taken because he's done it before, and I don't think this is going to be the type of quarterback that necessarily hurts him. Plus, as Dave mentioned, they could always roll Darnold out there, who, again, goes through the car wash and hopefully is good enough to just support his receivers. Addison, for me, is going to depend on Hawkinson probably more so than anything. If Hawkinson's going to miss a good portion of the season, then I'll be much more excited about Addison. If Hawkinson's ready to go to whatever capacity, I'll be a little bit more concerned because I don't know if a rookie quarterback can support all these guys. And that Jefferson's going to be the focal point. I mean, I when I talked to O'Connell at the coaches at the owners meetings, I asked him the question, which was, are you involving Jefferson in the quarterback decisions that you're making? He's like, yes. I mean, he's our go-to guy, so they are going to run their offense through Justin Jefferson. So Addison, I think, still can be a number 3 receiver. You brought this up with the trivia earlier this week that he was earlier in the last couple of weeks, one of the receivers to score 10 touchdowns last year, which, is surprising even when you hear it and you know it. So he's got amazing upside and potential, but if Hawkinson's there, be a little bit more concerned. Hawkinson's there, I'll be very excited about Addison.
Boy. If I told you that we haven't had a number 1 wide receiver in fantasy from a rookie quarterback, that there's not been a wide receiver finish number 1 with a rookie quarterback in 20 years.
Number 1 overall?
Yeah. And by the way, I have no idea if that's true. I'm just saying, I suspect it's true. I thought about it. I didn't research it, but if I go back and look, and I tell you that it hasn't happened since the turn of the century, would that change? You don't have him number 1, but would that make you feel like there's no way Justin Jefferson could be number 1?
How many times has a wide receiver of this caliber had a rookie quarterback? That'd be my next question.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been thinking about that too, and I really don't think, I have some notes on that, but I don't think often. But yeah, all right. And then would you take, how many rookie wide receivers would you take ahead of Jordan Addison in drafts?
2.
Where do I have Addison? I need a second.
Is it crazy to take Brian Thomas ahead of him?
There's no chance I would do it.
No, I'm not.
Xavier Worthy ahead of him?
No.
No. I almost sounded like a cow there.
Unless Rice is suspended like 8 games.
The thing about Worthy, because he was, if we go back to that poll where I put 2023, Worthy was 2 way ahead of Brian Thomas. I'll refresh it. It was Malik Nabers, then Worthy at 33%, Brian Thomas at 12%. But Worthy has more competition than Thomas, doesn't he? I mean, like by far more competition, I think.
Sure. And he's going to be so up and down from week to week. Worthy's addition is much more about Mahomes succeeding and other guys getting open than it is about Worthy making a Tank Dell type of impact. That's part of the appeal for Worthy. He can be better than Tank Dell was last year. And that's saying something because Tank Dell was really good. I've got 2 rookie receivers ahead of Jordan Addison.
Okay. I am looking for good veteran pass catchers with a rookie QB. I will try to find that for you. Okay, let's go to our other trades. We had Minnesota again making a trade. They moved up to 17 from Jacksonville, gave up the 23rd pick and a 5th rounder. They got a 3rd rounder. Oh, no, they gave up a lot. I'm not going to go through it all, but they moved it up from 23 to 17. They took Dallas Turner, edge rusher. The Lions moved up from 29 to 24 to take cornerback Terrion Arnold out of Alabama. They traded that with Dallas, who gained a 3rd round pick out of this and lost a 7th round pick. The Chiefs moved up to take Xavier Worthy, and the Panthers moved up 1 spot to get Xavier Legette. If we're doing a 15-round draft, what do we have usually? 5 or 6 bench spots? Is Xavier Legette getting drafted in a 12-team league for you guys?
Yes.
Yeah, late, but yes.
Okay. Late, like your last pick, or does he come close?
Last 3 rounds. Someone that you're probably going to have to be patient with. I'd be shocked if he was an impact player for fantasy within the first 3 weeks of the season.
Jamie, let's look at the quarterbacks here. Caleb Williams, 1st overall to the Bears. Jayden Daniels to Washington. Drake Maye to New England. Let's stop there. Just give me some thoughts.
Caleb Williams has amazing weapons with the addition of Odunze joining DJ Moore and Keenan Allen and Cole Kmet. And so based on what he showed at USC, based on the opportunity that he's stepping into, has top 12 upside. Jayden Daniels, good enough weapons, at least for now. We'll see what Washington does to add to it. But when you talk about Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson, Austin Eckler, Zach Ertz, for what that's worth, his ability to run, both those guys for me are going to be top 12 quarterbacks as of now. Again, I may change tomorrow when I update my rankings for the first time. But I'll take Williams slightly over Daniels, but they're very, very close. And again, both will be top 12 quarterbacks for me ahead of just this contingent, which is at the back end of it. So Kyler Murray's 10 for me. So after that, ahead of Brock Purdy, ahead of Justin Herbert, ahead of Tua Tagovailoa, ahead of Trevor Lawrence, Kirk Cousins, that group. Drake Maye is not somebody that I will be drafting in a 1 quarterback league. He will be somebody that I'll take with a late pick in a 2 quarterback league. Would not be surprised if the Patriots make a run at one of the San Francisco guys, just trying to bring in somebody that could be an alpha wide receiver because they don't have one of those. But he's someone, it's funny. Dave mentioned about Malik Nabers and the Giants quarterback situation potentially improving next year. What about the Patriots receiving core improving next year, and them just overhauling that group? So Maye for Dynasty still has a lot of upside. It's just for redraft, it's going to look probably pretty ugly. I'll take McCarthy as the 3rd quarterback. If I know you're not continuing, but he'll be the third.
But listen, the Patriots are about to be on the clock too. I mean, they could improve their receiving core.
But there's nobody left.
Even if they did, right?
That changes the potential for Drake Maye now. Like they need to swing for they need to get a T. Higgins. They need to get a Brandon Ayuk or a Deebo Samuel. They need that type of guy to make Drake Maye relevant.
Or they just draft that guy next year, and what if they follow the Patrick Mahomes plan with Maye and they don't put him on the field until week 18 this year?
Right.
And it's Jacoby Brissett throwing to Kendrick Bourne and Pop Douglas and Juju Smith-Schuster, and we're all laughing at them.
So, like, Adam, I'll give you an example. I'm in a rookie-only draft, super flex league. I have the 5th pick, and there is the chance that Maye will be on the board there, and it's a tough call.
Which one? Your 4th pick?
Yeah.
Oh, 5th pick? Yeah.
Because I need a quarterback. Right now, the only 2 starting quarterbacks that I have on my roster are Matthew Stafford and Geno Smith. So, like, I need to upgrade that position. Like, I would prefer if it's McCarthy on the board.
I would love for the Patriots to take Lad McConkey. He's a guy that a lot of people are very high on. Adonai Mitchell, Lad McConkey. They could be the next 2 picks in the NFL draft. We shall see. Okay, how about any thoughts on Penix to Atlanta, Bo Nix to Denver, Dave? Jamie talked a little bit about McCarthy. Well, you can add there if you'd like.
No, I mean, McCarthy is basically, I'm going to feel the same way as Jamie as far as McCarthy goes in fantasy. I don't know what to tell you about Michael Penix other than this feels like Arthur Blank trying to, mimic maybe like what the Packers were doing with Favre and Rodgers or something like that. Think about this. Kirk Cousins just signed his 4-year deal, $45 million a year. If he's off the Falcons roster in 2 years, two football seasons, he'll carry a pretty decent cap whack to the Falcons, and B, Penix will be 26 years old, getting his first taste of NFL action. This really feels gross, short-sighted, poorly thought out, and you never see anything like this from the NFL. I would almost feel bad for Penix, except he's going to be paid like the number 8 overall pick in the draft, and that's going to be pretty good for him. I don't know what they're doing. It makes me drafting Penix in a Superflex redraft league. Maybe if you draft Cousins and you want to stash him, that's fine. Maybe if you just want to stash him in general. But in Dynasty, I think it's going to take somebody who's willing to be patient and willing to burn up a, late 2nd or early 3rd.
Well, you brought up a good comparison.
Yeah, Jordan Love. In our Dynasty League, Jordan Love, remember when Love was drafted, Rodgers was still in his heyday in Green Bay, and it just seemed like a weird pick. I probably said a lot of the same things I'm saying now. But you knew in time Love would theoretically get a chance. I took him with a round 6 pick, and I held on to him. I wasn't patient enough. You know who's got him now on his fantasy team? It's this guy right down there. That guy's got Jordan Love. And I don't have a backup quarterback, and I hate my dynasty team. What the hell is that doing?
Well, the only difference is Rodgers was potentially on his way out. Cousins is on his way in. Like, that's the biggest difference.
There's a little bit of irony here in that Kirk Cousins was a 4th-round pick the year the Commanders drafted RG3.
Yep.
And that was weird for a team to take a quarterback 2nd overall and then another one in round 4. That's really strange. And circumstances, as they were, ended up working out for them. So, okay, how about the Dave? What do you think of the running backs taken today?
Oh, they were awesome.
All right, tomorrow.
I guess the biggest question is, does one go in the 2nd round tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm going to
say yes.
Does 2? Do 2?
I think Arthur Blank is going to take a running back in the 2nd.
No. He's taking Spencer Rattler.
Okay, wide receiver Marvin Harrison. We talked about it earlier. He goes
101 in 1 QB dynasty and maybe even in Superflex dynasty, and he's awesome.
All right, and what about Trey McBride? Big loser, little loser,
slight loser. I dropped him from tight end 3 to tight end 4 behind Andrews.
All right, Giants get Malik Nabers, and I already went through the wide receivers who have had good seasons with bad quarterbacks. I did not mention this though. The Daniel Jones could be the next Russell Wilson and Jimmy Garoppolo. He's another guy who has an injury guarantee for 2025, so could easily be benched at some point so he doesn't get hurt and doesn't stay on the roster for 2025. So something to keep in mind there. Let's
Bo Nix.
Oh, well, yeah, we didn't really talk about Bo Nix. Okay, sorry. Go ahead, go back to Bo Nix. What?
And now we talked about Bo Nix.
Well, I mean, look, he's going to have a chance to start and good fit for the offense. My initial thought was like not the right guy for Cortland Sutton.
No.
I mean, look, this has the chance to be one of the worst offenses in the NFL. You know, when you look at this receiving core, it's, guys that can make some big plays down the field, Sutton and Marvin Mims. You know, Josh Reynolds right now is the third receiver. I think it's going to be not awful for Javonte Williams because year 2 from his ACL tear, we saw him involved in the passing game. We know that's a staple of Sean Payton's offense. And when you look at this receiving core, again, it's very incomplete. So Javonte is a winner for me with what the roster looks like right now, unless you're going to, sell me on, which I don't know if I could completely fight you on, Jaleel McLaughlin taking a bigger role and, still Samaje Perine being there. But it feels like Javonte is going to be the starter to open the season and was okay at times for what the situation was, bad team and coming off the ACL. So I'll be a Javonte Williams buyer at the right price.
What's the right price?
Round 6 or later.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's usually the point where you'll consider the last of the best RB2s. And I think he's in that bucket. So sure. Go ahead.
But yeah, Sutton, I think it'll be a good value pick because he should lead the team in targets. He's not catching 10 touchdowns from Bo Nix, but 6 or 7, I think that's within the realm of possibility. And, a chance for 75 plus catches is there.
I'm scared of this offense. Their offensive line might not be as good as it was last year. Their receiving core has speed. You mentioned Mims. You forgot about Tim Patrick. We don't know if Tim Patrick is the same old Tim
Oh my
Patrick.
God, 2 significant leg injuries. Yeah,
Well, I mean, maybe they'll let him play with roller skates. I'm concerned that Bo Nix, when he's down 2 scores in the second half, won't be able to rally this team. And I'm worried that they just won't put up a lot of touchdowns from week to week. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be out on Broncos players, with the exception of Javonte being a decent value. And I like McLaughlin too, but he's going to have to be a late round pick that I'll stash on my bench. And is Samaje Perine still there? Is he still a thing?
Yes.
So that's 3 running backs, a whole lot of wide receivers that you can't feel great about, with a quarterback who's dazzled at Oregon the last 2 years, throwing like 6.5 air yards downfield most of the time. Capable, he can do that. But is this offense just going to look like what they had with Russ last year? And this is another team. I think there was a domino effect from the Falcons taking Penix, where the Broncos realized, oh crap, there's only one quarterback left worth a damn that we could potentially start. We can't afford to trade back. We can't afford to wait until round 2.
They don't have
him, and he fits sort of. So they took Bo Nix. It feels ugly. It feels ugly.
They don't have a second round pick, the Broncos. Now
they couldn't even do it. Well, they had traded back far enough in round 1. Maybe they could have picked one up.
Yeah. Well, they've got 3 5th-round picks. They have a 3rd. They have a 4th. They have ammunition to move into the second round. As of now, they do not have a second round pick. I think the Jets are another team that needs to move into the second round to get a wide receiver after taking Fashanu. But those are teams that could definitely don't look at what a team has right now. They could easily trade into round 2 if they want to. All right, back to wide receiver. First of all, Dave, what did you find with looking for wide receivers with rookie quarterbacks?
Went back the last 10 years. The guy who's really done a great job with a rookie quarterback was Keenan Allen, 2020, 18.3 fantasy PPR points per game. The next best was Hopkins. What year was this? This might have been, when was this? I'm sorry I don't have the years right in front of me. You're just going to have to sue me. I think it was last year. Hopkins had 17.8 per game. That doesn't sound right. Keenan Allen is the right answer. He's the best one over the last decade.
Okay. He didn't really have a great season. I think he missed a couple of games, but it was good. Malik Nabers. So we talked about Harrison. We talked about him enough. Malik Nabers, 6th overall, goes to the Giants. Okay. I guess I'll throw out a few more names here. Would you rather have George Pickens or Malik Nabers?
Pickens.
Yeah.
It's Pickens. It's Hopkins from... Oh, it's a bunch of years jumbled together. My bad.
Okay, great. Malik Nabers or who's going in that range? I mean, I already asked Keenan Allen earlier. I don't know. I don't have a great name right now. Sorry.
All right. I got the number. Keenan Allen, 18.3. Nico Collins is 2nd. That was from last year, but I don't know if you put Collins in the same category as some of these other receivers that we were talking about. Remember, these are wide receivers catching passes from a rookie quarterback. Tyler Boyd was third in 2020, 16.2. There are only 4 wide receivers. This is your stat, Adam. 4 wide receivers in the last decade that have averaged more than 16.0 PPR points per game with a rookie quarterback. One of them was Devontae Adams last year, 10 games, 16.2 fantasy points per game.
Okay. How about last one? Malik Nabers or Chris Godwin?
Neighbors.
Yeah, I think I'll lean toward Neighbors.
I'm drafting him in every league. You're not getting any Neighbors with me. Any Neighbors with me. I'm reaching for.
You're just going to be out on a farm by yourself, 30 miles away from everybody.
I get it. Roma Dunze goes 9th overall to the Bears. Is he still your third best in Dynasty?
Absolutely.
He might be my second just because of the quarterback he's tied to. But I'm torn on that. It just feels like the uncertainty of what Neighbors has. Like they were close to begin with, going into this. And Keenan Allen, 32, may be gone next year. DJ Moore might not be with the Bears much longer based on his contract situation. And so we could see a situation where it's Caleb Williams and Roma Dunze for 10 years. And that could be amazing. So I'm torn.
Okay, Natalie and Bruglia. All right. Thank you. Okay, so then we had from picks 10 through 22, we did not have any wide receivers. We had a lot of linemen there. We had some defensive players. But we had Brian Thomas, 23rd overall to Jacksonville. What's that?
Just throw Bowers in there.
All right. Yeah, we could start talking about Bowers. So who do you think's going first in a redraft league, Bowers or Xavier Worthy?
Bowers.
Bowers.
Where are you ranking him?
Tight end 9.
I will put him at 9 as well. Once Hawkinson is looking and feeling right, and we think there's a chance he could play 17, I'll put him at 10.
So who's that behind? Is that behind Evan Ingram still?
Behind Ingram, ahead of Njoku for me.
Behind Ingram, ahead of Goddard, Jamison Njoku, I agree. Jake Ferguson. All those.
Yeah, he's definitely ahead of Hawkinson. I don't expect Hawkinson to be ready to start the season.
Right. That's why I'm putting him ahead of Hawkinson for now.
All right, we had Brian Thomas, we had Xavier Worthy, and I
was hoping to put him ahead of Kittle. I really wish Bowers had gone like to the Chargers or somewhere awesome.
If Debo gets traded, I will tell you this. George Kittle has averaged more 18.3 PPR fantasy points per game in his last 3 seasons when Debo Samuel has either missed a game or played less than half of the snaps. But the Niners do get Ricky Pearsall, 31st overall. He's kind of an older prospect. He'll be 24 years old in September.
Buffalo trades for Brandon Ayuk.
And Carolina gets Xavier Legette, 32nd overall, 23 years old. He has had only one good year, but it was terrific. 71 catches, 1,255 yards, 7 touchdowns in 12 games for Legette. So now they've got Deontay Johnson. Now they've got Legette, second year for Mingo. And Thielen's still there. Hey, Bryce Young. All right. I see you, Bryce Young. I made the case for him a couple weeks ago. He's a sleeper, I think.
I don't really care about Legette so much, and even Deontay Johnson as much as I do Dave Canales. Just what he's done with the last 2 quarterbacks he's gotten his hands on in Geno Smith and Baker Mayfield. He's turned those guys into relevant quarterbacks in the league again. And so hopefully he does the same thing with a guy who was considered the best quarterback in last year's class. Clearly didn't play like it, but has the potential to hopefully overcome some of his size deficiencies and production deficiencies from his rookie campaign. And giving him more weapons is just a plus. So the offensive line was rebuilt. The receiving core was rebuilt. The coaching staff was rebuilt. So Bryce Young has a chance to surprise some people. Now, no one's drafting him in redraft leagues unless you're just, got a deep bench. But I'm much more happy about him in dynasty leagues for sure, based on what has happened this offseason.
Okay, and we can also take a look at. Well, I do
go to HQ, so I'll say good night.
Right. Good night, Jamie.
Good night, Jamie.
Dave, what do you think? Do you think Legette? I always talk about the 900 yards. great rookie season if you get to 900 yards. You think Legette has a chance at that?
Slim. He's a tough evaluation because he only had the one good year at South Carolina. And it's just hard to trust anybody in Carolina getting there. You know, they've got a watered down version of the Bears trio. Okay. Bears rookie is Odunze. They've got Legette. The Bears' new addition was Keenan Allen. Panthers' new addition was Deontay Johnson. DJ Moore was there in Chicago last year. Thielen was in Carolina last year. I have a hard time believing that two of the three guys in Chicago can get to 900 yards. I don't know if any of the three guys in Carolina can get to 750.
Yeah. Okay. And offensive line, Joe Alt was a pretty interesting pick for the Chargers. He is a left tackle, but I think they said it's to be determined who's going to play left tackle for them. We have Rashawn Slater.
Surprised that Jim Harbaugh didn't say they're both going to play left tackle.
So you take Joe Alt 5th overall, but you might be moving him to a different position. And offensive linemen get moved all the time, but
sometimes the results are good and sometimes the results aren't good.
Yeah.
So it's going to be curious to see how that works out. But my goodness, if they put Alt next to Slater on the left side of the line, that's going to be just menacing.
As a guard?
Defenses. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even think that was an option. I thought
with Jim Harbaugh, all options are on the table. Okay. But right tackle makes much more sense. It's just which guy moves to right tackle.
Yeah. Okay. Right. I don't know. Anyway, let's go to our next one. It was
that's for Harbaugh to figure out.
7th overall, Tennessee getting J.C. Latham out of Alabama.
One of my favorite prospects in the draft class, just an absolute mauler on the right side of that line. I think they would have preferred Alt, but getting Latham to either plug in at right tackle or maybe they move him to left tackle.
No, it sounds like he was asked about it. Based on the interview I saw, it sounds like Latham is going to play left tackle for Tennessee, which he's supposed to be a right tackle.
Right. So, but the teams have visions of how they're going to use these guys, and they might have already talked about it. They might have some evidence that Latham can play left tackle and do it well right away. The left side of that offensive line is going to be really good too.
Right next to Skoronski.
Mm-hmm.
The Jets,
on paper, it should be. We'll see how it ends up.
Obviously, Michael Penix is a big head scratcher. To me, the Jets taking Olu Fashanu is also a head scratcher.
Not to me.
Well, okay. Why not?
Their starting tackles before today were both 32 or 33 years old and both in contract years. Tyron Smith, Morgan Moses. They needed to do something for the future. I mocked a tackle to them. I picked Latham and ended up Latham going a little sooner than that. Thanks, Harbs. But I think Fashanu's a tremendous talent and a guy who can end up being a great left tackle in this league. Wouldn't surprise me if he opened the season as the starting right tackle for the New York Jets.
I guess it surprised me because they have to win now. They have to. Otherwise, they're all getting fired. And he seems like a little bit more of a developmental pick for the Jets. But Tyron Smith is not playing 17 games. I don't know.
They absolutely, if they're protecting Aaron Rodgers, they needed the tackle help. It was a smart pick.
All right. My brother's a Jets fan. He hated it. The Saints, Tali Fuaga, they get 14th overall.
Mm-hmm.
Probably going to play him at tackle, although I haven't seen anything on that. He can play guard too. The Bengals get, maybe you can call him a developmental prospect.
This is a developmental prospect.
Mims. He's only
8 starts.
He's played in 30 games, only made 8 starts.
But he's a beast. He could end up being the best tackle of this, or maybe second best tackle of this draft class. He's got huge upside. The Bengals have Trent Brown penciled in at right tackle. I believe it's either a 1-year deal or they can get away from him after a year. So that pick made sense too, but they've got to develop him.
I did not see what Pittsburgh said about where they planned to play Troy Fautanu. He's a guy who's got a lot of versatility.
I think he'll end up being an interior guy. I don't know what they said either. So they might have said tackle, but they drafted a tackle last year. They had to move him to right tackle. Maybe they put him at left and now this year's rookie plays right. They'll figure it out. It feels like the theme for a lot of these offensive lines is, well, we're drafting these guys. They're talented guys. We'll figure out where they'll play later.
I'm looking at a tweet from the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it says, we select offensive tackle Troy Fautanu. So I don't know what that means, but
They maybe see him as a tackle, probably.
maybe. If they do, that would be 2 straight years where they've drafted a tackle in the first round. They had gone 26 straight drafts before that without taking a tackle in the first round. The Packers take Jordan Morgan, 25th overall. He was a 3-year starter at offensive tackle, but another guy that people think could play guard, Jordan Morgan for the Packers. The Buccaneers get a center, Graham Barton, 26th overall.
No.
And their run blocking was not good enough, so that's a nice pick. Graham Barton.
That dude can play anywhere, but absolutely at center.
And the Cowboys are in this interesting situation where they've got Tyler Smith, who can play guard or tackle very well. And so they can draft an interior guy and a tackle. They drafted Tyler Guyton, 29th overall. They finally did something this offseason. So they traded down to do it, but Tyler Guyton is Dallas's guy. All right, Dave, I'll let you go. We have to do FFT in 5.
Awesome.
We'll talk to everybody midnight tomorrow. And thank you all so much. Midnight after, I don't know when the hell you're listening to this. After rounds 2 and 3.
2023. It's 2023.
Good night, everybody. Thanks again for hanging out. See ya.